Starting off this list at our number 10 spot, we have the crystal skulls. The ancient crystal skulls found in Mexico and Central America are a group of pre-Columbian artifacts that are believed to be over 1,000 years old. These skulls are made out of clear or milky quartz and are intricately carved to resemble human skulls. Despite being discovered in the 19th and 20th centuries, their true origin and purpose remains a mystery. According to legend, the crystal skulls were created by the Maya or the Aztecs and are said to possess magical powers that can heal or grant spiritual enlightenment to those who come in contact with them. Some people believe that the crystal skulls are extraterrestrial in origin and that they hold the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Many theories have been put forth over the years about the purpose and significance of the crystal skulls. Some researchers believe that they were used for religious or ceremonial purposes, while others speculate that they may have been used for divination, or even as tools for communication with otherworldly beings. Despite decades of research and study, the true origins and purpose of the crystal skulls remain shrouded in mystery. In our number 9 spot today, we have Linear A. Linear A is an undeciphered script used by the Minoan civilization between 1800 and 1450 BCE. The script was first discovered in 1900 by British archaeologist Arthur Evans and was used to write the Minoan language, which is also still largely unknown. Linear A is composed of over 100 different signs, including pictograms and ideograms, but it is believed to be a syllabic script, meaning that each sign represents a syllable or sound. Despite numerous attempts by researchers to decipher the script, its meaning and purpose remains a mystery. The mystery surrounding Linear A is compounded by the fact that the Minoan civilization itself is shrouded in mystery, with little known about its social structure, economy, or religious practices. The decipherment of Linear A could potentially shed light on these enigmatic aspects of Minoan culture, but for now the script remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Tartaria tablets. These are a set of 3 clay tablets discovered in 1961 in Romania, dating back to the Neolithic era around 5300 BCE. The tablets contain a series of symbols that are thought to be the oldest form of writing in Europe. While there is still much debate about the meaning of the symbols and whether they constitute as a true writing system, many researchers believe that they represent a form of proto-writing or proto-cuneiform. The tablets have caused controversy in the archaeological community, with some experts questioning their authenticity and others arguing that they represent a significant discovery that could change our understanding of early human communication. Despite their importance, the Tartaria tablets remain largely shrouded in mystery, and their true meaning and purpose may never be fully understood. In our number 7 spot today, we have the stone spheres from Costa Rica. These ancient stone balls found in Costa Rica are a collection of nearly perfect spherical stones ranging in size from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter. These stone balls were created by the Dequis culture between 700 and 1530 CE, and they were discovered in southern Costa Rica in the 1930s. They have since become an archaeological mystery, with many unanswered questions about their origins, purpose, or how they were made. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding the stone balls is how they were created. The spheres are made of granite and other hard stones, and they were perfectly shaped without the use of any modern tools or technology. Some have suggested that they were made using some sort of unknown technique, or that they were created with the help of extraterrestrial technology. Another mystery surrounding the stone balls is their purpose. Some believe that they were used as part of a game, while others argue that they had a more practical use, such as astronomical observations or as a status symbol. However, no definitive answers have ever been found. The stone balls have also raised questions about the Dequis culture itself. Despite their impressive creations, very little is known about the people and their language and written records, which have not survived. This lack of knowledge has made it difficult to fully understand the significance of the stone balls and their role in the culture. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Piri Reis map. The Piri Reis map is a world map created by Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513. The map is notable for its accurate representation of South America and Antarctica, which were not officially discovered until centuries later. Of course, this means that what has puzzled researchers is the source of his knowledge. One theory is that Piri may have had access to ancient maps that are no longer in existence, such as the Library of Alexandria, which was destroyed in a fire in the 1st century BCE. BCE. Others speculate that he may have had contact with extraterrestrial beings who provided him with advanced knowledge of geography and cartography. What makes the Piri-Reis map even more mysterious is the presence of features that are not visible in modern maps. For example, the map includes a land bridge between South America and Antarctica, which has been confirmed by modern satellite imagery. However, this land bridge was only discovered by modern science in the 20th century. Another mystery surrounding the Piri-Reis map is the presence of a series of markings and symbols that appear to depict astronomical and astrological data. Some researchers believe that these symbols may have been used for navigation or even to track the movement of the stars. Despite decades of research and study, the true source of Piri-Reis's knowledge and the purpose of the markings on the map remain a mystery, making it one of the most enigmatic ancient artifacts to this day. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Antikythera mechanism. The Antikythera mechanism is an ancient Greek artifact discovered in 1901 by a group of sponge divers off of the coast of the island of Antikythera. The device, which is believed to date back to the 2nd or 1st century BCE, is a very complex mechanism made up of gears and cogs, and it is thought to have been used to predict astronomical events and the cycles of the solar and lunar calendars. What makes this mechanism so mysterious is its advanced technology and the fact that nothing else like it has been discovered from the same time period. The device is believed to have been incredibly sophisticated for its time, and its level of complexity was not achieved again until the development of similar technology during the Renaissance, over 1,000 years later. The mechanism is also mysterious because its purpose and origin are still not fully understood. Despite extensive research and analysis, there is still much that remains unknown about the device, including who built it and how it was used. The Antikythera mechanism remains a fascinating artifact, and it continues to capture the imagination of scientists, historians, and just the general public. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Voynich manuscript. The Voynich manuscript is a very mysterious book that dates back to the 15th century, written in an unknown script and illustrated with strange drawings of plants, animals, and astrological symbols. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a rare book dealer who acquired the book in 1912. What makes the Voynich manuscript so mysterious is the fact that no one has been able to decipher its contents or identify the language it is written in. The strange drawings and symbols have baffled scholars for centuries, and many theories have been proposed as to its purpose and origin. Some believe that the manuscript is a secret code or cipher, while others speculate that it is a lost alchemaic text or an early form of cryptography. Despite extensive efforts to decipher the manuscript, its secrets remain unsolved, and it continues to be a source of fascination and speculation for scholars and enthusiasts alike. The Voynich manuscript is a testament to the enduring power of mystery and intrigue, and it serves as a reminder of the vastness and complexity of human knowledge and understanding. Maybe this book that we have is holding on to some of the most important secrets that have just been lost to time. In our number 3 spot today, we have the works of old men. The works of old men are structures that were first observed from the air by a British pilot in 1927, and they are located near the Azraq Oasis in Jordan. There are hundreds of these wheel-like structures that are over 80 feet wide, some even as large as 200 feet. These huge structures have been dated back so far that they might just be the oldest man-made creations that we have ever found. While this is all amazing, we have absolutely no idea what they are or why they were created. The theories range from things like sun tracking to ceremonies to some sort of spiritual relevance, but we really just aren't sure. While things like this are incredible finds, and it's amazing that some of the first man-made things still exist on our Earth, it is insane how we have no idea what they are or how to use them, and unfortunately, especially because of the fact that it's been thousands and thousands of years, it's most likely that the mysteries surrounding them are totally lost with the past. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Joppa stones. These stones were found by archaeologists in China. There were hundreds of discs made of stone that were found under a ton of dust inside of a cave. The notable thing about these discs is that they resemble phonography records with a hole in the center that leads into a spiral groove. These stones are at least 10,000 years old, and the groove in them is made up of super small hieroglyphics. Here's the kicker though, these hieroglyphics were deciphered and found to have stories of spaceships crashing into mountains. Mummies. These spaceships were apparently being flown by what was called Droppa. After this discovery, the researcher who found it was ridiculed as people believed it was ridiculous, but years later some Russian researchers asked for a few of the stones to examine. Upon the Russian examination, they found some sort of extraordinary vibration or hum coming from the stones. After this, research on the stones either stopped or has just been hidden from the public. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Indus Valley Script. This is an ancient writing system that was used by the Indus Valley Civilization, one of the earliest known civilizations in the world. The script is believed to have been in use from sometime around 2600 to 1900 BCE, and it is one of the few ancient scripts that has yet to be deciphered. The Indus Valley Script consists of over 400 different symbols, which have been found on seals, pottery, and other artifacts from the civilization. Despite numerous attempts to decipher the script, researchers have been unable to identify the language or meaning behind the symbols. The mysterious nature of the Indus Valley Script has led to much speculation about the civilization that created it. Some researchers believe that the symbols may have been used for religious or ritual purposes, while others suggest that they may have been used for trade or administration. Regardless of their purpose, the symbols remain a fascinating mystery of the ancient world, and their true meaning may never be fully understood. Starting off at our number 10 spot, we have the Raven Rock Mountain Complex. The Raven Rock Mountain Complex is a highly secure military installation located in Pennsylvania in the United States, and it is often referred to as the quote underground Pentagon. This facility, also known as Site R, was built during the Cold War as a backup command center for the Pentagon and was designed to ensure continuity of government operations in case of a nuclear attack. The complex is located inside of a mountain and has a vast network of underground tunnels, facilities, and backup power systems to keep the facility running in case of a disaster. And it is even equipped with communication systems, medical facilities, and living quarters to support personnel in the event of an emergency. Basically, it has everything someone would need in the case of the absolute worst case scenario. Although the site was built for the tense times of the Cold War, it is still in use today, but the functions and capabilities of the site remain classified. We know it serves as a critical facility for the US government and military, and that it has been activated as recently as during the 2020 crisis. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Located in the Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Station near Colorado Springs, Colorado, this complex is a military installation and bunker. It was originally built during the Cold War as a command center for the United States North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, and as a nuclear bomb shelter for its personnel. The complex consists of multiple tunnels and chambers, including the famous blast doors that weigh 25 tons each and can withstand a nuclear blast. It has its own power plant, water supply, air filtration system, and food storage, which is of course all by design to allow for it to sustain its occupants for an extended period in the case of emergency. It has a strategic location and a huge, impressive design, which is why it is regarded as a symbol of the country's preparedness for national security threats. I mean, the thing is even built with a bunch of springs so that none of the buildings will shift more than an inch during all potential types of disaster. That is wild. Like I mentioned, it was built in the Cold War era, but that doesn't mean it's totally out of use now. The purpose of the complex has evolved over the years, and today it still serves as a vital command center for NORAD and other military agencies, and the complex remains an essential part of the United States military infrastructure. In our number 8 spot today, we have Metro 2. During the time where Stalin was in power, it is said that he instructed that an underground secret transport system would be built known as Metro 2. This mysterious underground system is said to connect different administrative institutions, and it's even rumored that it contains apartments and different technical rooms. It's sort of like a secret escape tunnel for high-level officials. Of course, it's completely blocked off to outsiders or to the general public, and while the Moscow Metro administration denies that these tunnels even exist, there was an urban exploration group back in 1994 that claimed to have found the entrance. At this point in time, the existence of only one of the rumored 4 lines has been confirmed, and it is called D6. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Yamantau Mountain Complex. The Yamantau Mountain Complex is a highly secretive and heavily guarded underground facility located in the Ural Mountains of Russia. Its purpose and functions are shrouded in mystery, and the Russian government has actually never officially acknowledged its existence. It is believed to have been built during the Cold War as a nuclear weapons storage facility and command center. There is an above-ground town called Mezgor, and that town is super secret and off limits, so much so that people aren't even allowed within the vicinity of it, and this is all thought to be because this town might be holding the complex underneath it. The underground complex is said to cover an area over 400 square miles with many tunnels and underground facilities, and its exact purpose and current use remains unknown, with various theories and speculations ranging from a bunker for the Russian government and military leaders to a storage facility for advanced weapons and technology. Some have even speculated that it could be used as a launch site for missiles or a secret laboratory for biological weapons research. Despite many attempts by outsiders to uncover the truth about this complex, the Russian government has remained quite tight-lipped, and they maintain strict security measures around the area. In our number 6 spot today, we have Project Iceworm. This is a little different than most of the others on this list, and that is because this is the name of what was once a top-secret, super classified mission. This secret mission took place in the 1960s, and it was basically intended to build a series of mobile nuclear missile launch sites under the Greenland ice sheet, because this would then house medium-range missiles close enough that they would be able to strike targets within the Soviet Union. This project was called Project Iceworm, but there was another project called Camp Century. Basically, Camp Century was to test out Project Iceworm and see how likely it would be and how feasible it would be. So, engineers went to work and created a network of underground tunnels and buildings that included a place to stay, a kitchen, a hall for hanging out, there were supply rooms, and even a communication center and a nuclear power plant. This was all kept as a super secret for a long time, and was even kept from the Danish government for 7 years. In 1966, however, the project was cancelled because of the shifting ice. This created unstable conditions for the underground tunnels that are most likely crushed now, but still remain beneath the Arctic. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Svalbard Seed Vault. Deep within a mountain that sits in between Norway and the North Pole sits this vault that is more than 320 feet inside. This vault holds a massive collection of seeds. Like, we're talking about 890,000 different preserved seed samples from nearly every country in the world. The vault that holds these seeds is made to withstand both man-made and natural disasters, and the seeds inside are meant to be kept safe, so in case of some sort of huge disaster, the seeds inside would ensure the continuation of a wide variety of very diverse food options. The door to this vault is only opened a few times a year, and just a few people are allowed inside in order to deliver seeds to the shelves. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center. Wow, just like an easy name to remember. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center is a top secret facility located in Virginia in the United States, and it was built during the Cold War to house and protect high-level government officials in the event of a national emergency, such as a nuclear attack. The facility is owned and operated by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and is designed to be self-sufficient for up to several months. It is said that this bunker was even put into action after the assassination of President Kennedy. While the facility is primarily intended for use by government officials, it has also been used to provide emergency shelter for other individuals during natural disasters such as hurricanes or earthquakes. Despite being a highly secure location, the facility's existence and purpose have been the subject of public scrutiny and controversy over the years. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Beijing Underground City. The Beijing Underground City, also known as the Beijing Underground Palace, is a vast network of tunnels and underground spaces located beneath the bustling streets of Beijing in China. Originally constructed in the 1960s as a bomb shelter and military command center during, you guessed it, the Cold War, the underground city has now been transformed into a subterranean network of shopping malls, restaurants, cinemas, and even a skating rink, covering an area of more than than 85,000 square meters, the underground city is divided into 3 main levels and is connected to the city's subway stations and shopping centers. The tunnels and spaces are lit by fluorescent lights and are climate controlled to provide a very comfortable environment for visitors. Some of the underground attractions include the Beijing Planning Exhibition Hall and the Underground City Commercial Center. Despite its fascinating history and modern amenities, the Beijing Underground City is still largely unknown to many tourists and visitors to the city, making it a hidden gem waiting to be explored. I guess this is one place that is definitely not so secret or mysterious anymore, and it definitely has changed quite vastly since its initial creation. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Greenbrier Bunker. The Greenbrier Bunker, also known as the Greenbrier Hotel Presidential Emergency Facility, is a former top-secret underground bunker located beneath the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. The bunker was built during the Cold War as a secure location for members of the US Congress to gather in the event of a nuclear attack. The bunker was constructed between 1959 and 1962, and it was kept secret from the public until it was exposed by the Washington Post in 1992. The facility included living quarters, meeting rooms, a power plant, a water treatment facility, and even a broadcast studio to communicate with the outside world. The bunker was maintained until the end of the Cold War in 1992 and was never used for its intended purpose. Today, the bunker is open to the public as a tourist attraction and is managed by the Greenbrier Resort. Visitors can take guided tours of the facility and learn about its history and purpose. What a nice day out with the fam. Here's where we almost had to hide the president. Maybe save the dark history for high school, you know? In our number 1 spot today, we have the Canadian Forces Base North Bay Complex. This complex is a military base located in North Bay, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto. The complex is home to the Canadian Air Defence Sector, which is responsible for the aerospace surveillance and control of Canadian airspace, and it all sits 60 floors underground. CFB North Bay is a critical element of NORAD and the binational Canada-United States Joint Defense Plan. The base monitors and defends Canadian and North American airspace through the use of radar, satellite technology, and other very advanced equipment. Because of its precarious situation in between what was the Soviet Union and the United States, this underground facility was built with safety in mind first. It was designed to withstand an attack 267 times more powerful than the one against Hiroshima. Much information on this site remains quite secret and hidden from the public, but it is said that it remains operational to this day, employing over 1,500 military and civilian personnel.
Starting off this countdown, we have the transmission tests. The US government once ran a series of tests on people with disabilities and prison inmates. They thought that it was fine to do so with this demographic of people because basically they thought they were going nowhere in life and they have nothing to lose. One of the tests in the mid-1940s was quite disgusting. It involved having young men swallow unfiltered stool. They did this to see how a deadly stomach bug was transmitted. The study took place at a reformatory prison, the New York State Vocational Institution. They claimed that they couldn't just spray the germs and have the test subjects breathe it in. No. They said that swallowing it was a more effective way to spread the disease. Of course, these men were forced to do so against their will and were left traumatized. In our 9th spot, we have the malaria tests. In the late 1940s, a group of men were infected with malaria before being starved for 5 days. While being starved, some of them were subjected to hard labor. Those men lost 14 pounds within a few days. They then were treated for their malaria with a number of drugs. What's wild is that this study was always kept a secret. In fact, most studies from the 1940s to 60s were never covered by the media. And if they were, the focus was, oh my god, the government might find a cure, it's amazing the work that they're doing. The focus was never on how they were finding the cure and their poor test subjects. In our 8th spot today, we have the pregnant women. In the late 1940s, a number of researchers were testing diethylstilbestrol, which is a synthetic estrogen, on pregnant women. They thought that this would help women against pregnancy complications, but it sadly did the exact opposite. A number of women ended up miscarrying or giving birth to low birth weight babies. None of the women knew that they were being experimented on in the first place. If they had known, they probably wouldn't have risked it. In our 7th spot, we have the syphilis experiment. In the early 1950s, the government controlled a syphilis study on men in Guatemala. Their aim was to find out how syphilis and other diseases spread. Sadly, not much is known about these experiments because the government records were destroyed years after the program was shut down in 1956. What we do know though is that the men were exposed to prostitutes infected with this disease, but they later found that that didn't spread the infections quick enough, so they decided to inject the disease into the men. They did so by 2 ways. One, by making a medicine with this disease and putting it on their downstairs eggplant, or by injecting it directly into their spine. What made this worse is that there were no age restrictions to these tests, so they were targeting the young too. Some declined drastically in health. Plus, a number of test subjects were left untreated so that they could study the progression of the infections as well as the damage it would cause. In our 6th spot, we have the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project is the project that produced the world's first atomic bomb. They conducted a number of tests, including detonating a series of bombs in a New Mexico desert. They also conducted a number of tests on humans to see the effects that radiation would have on us. One of the tests included monitoring nuclear technicians for the effects of radiation exposure. The technicians had no clue that they were being studied. Some fell extremely sick. One woman even suffered from kidney failure. That's when the workers began to wonder if they were getting sick from the radiation. Later, more tests were done on humans. This time, they were injected with polonium and other radioactive elements. In the end, hundreds of people ended up being injected or fed with plutonium, which is one of the most dangerous substances in the world. Sadly, they targeted individuals with disabilities. Over 57 children with disabilities and more than 100 adults with disabilities were injected with plutonium against their will. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the drug tests. Over the years, the government has sponsored a number of drug tests to see the effects that they have on humans. One involved a professional tennis player, Harold Blower. In 1952, he died after being injected with a fatal dose of a hallucinogenic drug. The US Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, and the New York State Attorney General all worked together to conceal evidence of its involvement in this experiment. They did so for 23 years. They all denied having any part of this. They were like, oh, the army was injecting him with drugs? We had nothing to do with that. We didn't know. Yeah, right. In our 4th spot, we have LSD. Dr. Frank Olson was an American bacteriologist and biological warfare scientist that worked for the Army and CIA. On November 28, 1953, Frank died after falling out of a hotel in Pennsylvania. His death is quite controversial because we don't know what truly happened, but there are a lot of theories out there. So apparently on November 19th, Olson was given LSD without his knowledge or consent. Then, just days later, he plummeted to his death. Many believe that the government had something to do with this. Either they were drugging him constantly and he became so delusional that he took his own life, or he was in too deep. Apparently, days before his death, he attempted to resign. He even told his wife that he made a terrible mistake, and then he mysteriously died. Suspicious, don't you think? In our 3rd spot, we have mental health experiments. Dr. Robert Heath is quite the controversial figure in history, and that's due to the number of tests that he did on patients with schizophrenia. In the studies funded by the US Army, he would dose the patients with LSD before implanting electrodes into their brain and shocking them. He thought that this would cure all their problems. He also would use this on gay men to try and make them straight. In our 2nd spot, we have the monster experiment. In 1939, psychologist Wendell Johnson and his student Mary Tudor conducted something known as the monster experiment. For this, they used 22 young orphans. Now, the study was all about stuttering. They wanted to see if psychological abuse could induce stuttering in children. And turns out, it did. So for this test, they divided the orphans into 2 groups. One group, the children were praised and treated humanely. In the other group, they were treated the complete opposite. In the end, the children in the negative group developed stutters that they retained for the rest of their lives. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the mustard gas experiments. In the early part of World War II, it was feared that Germany was going to turn to chemical warfare. So the US Army wanted to be prepared. One way that they prepared was by studying the effects of mustard gas. So they gathered a number of healthy young men who volunteered. However, had they known what they were going to go through, chances are they wouldn't have volunteered. 1,200 volunteers were tested in small teams for several weeks. They were ordered to strip to the waist and then were sent into a chamber and doused with mustard gas. According to one survivor, and I quote, "All of the men began writhing around and screaming in pain as the chemical burned through their skin. Some pounded on the walls and demanded to be let out, though the doors were locked and only opened when the time was up." Now, mustard gas causes nasty burns to the skin, and it can also cause uncontrollable bleeding in the lungs if it's inhaled. Now, the men did receive treatment after the experiments, but they were threatened. They said that if they told anyone about these experiments, then they were going to be sent to military prison.
Number 10. The Altamura Caveman. When researchers were exploring the cave of Lamalunga beneath the Italian town of Altamura, they were hoping to learn more about how the cave had been formed and its history. As they gazed around the limestone walls, their flashlights crossed a peculiar formation. It wasn't something normally formed in a cave, but appeared to be limestone nonetheless. Clambering over to investigate, these researchers soon realized that they were looking at no stone, no stalactite or gmite, but a skull. Indeed, this skull was ribbed with stony formations, the years of limestone dripping onto its face, allowing it to have the appearance of the surrounding walls. The body was investigated by more researchers and discovered to be a Neanderthal, the skeleton perfectly preserved by the cave's stagnant environment. How many visitors had visited this cave without knowing what secrets it held? Number 9. The Hubei Caves. We haven't crawled out of these caves yet, as our next stop on this ancient tour is Hubei, a province in China. When archaeologists explored a remote area near the Three Gorges Dam, they found a series of strange holes cut into a sheer wall of stone. Each hole was roughly cut, rectangular, and fairly deep. There's also the detail of the coffins that were sticking out of them. Yes, it seems that whoever built this ancient site did so with the intention of burying their dead inside of it. This correlates with theories of the time about how it was considered dangerous for people to bury their dead in the ground, for fear of animals stealing grandma for dinner. As a result, these coffins were designed to prevent animals from getting an easy meal, though it's unknown exactly how the coffins were carried to their locations. Carbon dating reveals that these burials were likely carried out by the Bo people, an ancient Chinese ethnic minority which was present during the Tang dynasty. Number 8. The Gaelic Tree Mystery. In 2015, harsh winds were responsible for uprooting a 200-year-old tree and a 1,000-year-old mystery. Located in Ireland, farmers were recovering from a recent windstorm when they went in to inspect the damages. It was likely a sobering sight to see a tree they might have known as a source of comfort or a location for friendly picnicking violently uprooted and slaughtered by the wind. What was then more immediately sobering was the skeleton found tangled in its roots. Hiring archaeologists, it was quickly revealed that the remains were of a young Gaelic man, roughly 1,000 years old. Despite his skeletal disposition, clear evidence of knife wounds were visible on his ribs and hand. Whether buried by his family or his murderer, none can say, and the case remains open to this day. Number 7. The Jigsaw Mummies. We're taking a much shorter trip around the world to Scotland, specifically southeast. This discovery honestly ought to be a fairly standard affair. Mummies and mummification have been widespread for an extremely long time. In general, mummies are mostly made through the dehydration of a corpse's flesh, which allows them to retain some of their appearance that they had in life. Bandages are not required. As a result, there are actually hundreds of mummies around the world, as depending on the environment of their burial, they could just accidentally end up that way. Egypt was the most famous for theirs because they were the first to dehydrate corpses on purpose, which is now wrong thanks to this discovery. As the mummies were investigated, it was revealed that they were deliberately mummified. Not only that, but more disturbingly, they weren't all the same. Analyzing the strange makeup of their body structure led researchers to realize that the mummies were actually constructed from multiple different bodies, each one using different parts. Number 6. The Hands of Egypt. On the topic of Egypt, which we briefly were, another secret was uncovered in the city of Avaris. Undertaking the excavation of the ancient and ominously named city, researchers discovered several pits in front of the palace, filled with 16 human hands. More interestingly, every single hand was a right hand. The reason for this is attributed to that hand having cultural significance within ancient Egyptian culture, where the removal of a hand from an enemy combatant would allow a soldier to prove their victory. They could then exchange the hand for gold. Whether or not the disarmed opponent was dead or alive was apparently left up to the victor, as lacking their left hand would forever prevent them from participating in conflicts ever again, and mark them as a failure. Number 5. The Leper Warriors. Found within an ancient Italian cemetery, the bones of a warrior revealed a startling reality of the ancient military orders of the time. Prior to the establishment of cities within the region, nomadic peoples found themselves in constant conflict. That, mixed with the issue of leprosy and the lack of medical capabilities to treat it, led to drastic solutions which hoped to solve the issue. Not by curing leprosy, but by ensuring its victims could go out swinging. Employing lepers as warriors, these soldiers raged their way through the battlefield. The idea of hesitation and out-of-style instinct when their life was already in the hands of God. One corpse from Campacharo even showed evidence of having survived a direct strike to the skull from an opponent's mace, and the after effects of ancient attempts at brain surgery. Pretty sick if you ask me. Number 4. Monk in a statue. While this image may have made its way around the internet, the story behind it certainly has not. When a trader of ancient Chinese relics sent his newly acquired golden statue of a sitting Buddha to an expert in order to restore it to its original splendor, they were shocked to discover that the statue contained a mummified corpse. When unwrapping this terrible gift, the name of the corpse was found to have been written on a bundle of cloth, dubbing the man as the monk Li Khan. This gave evidence to theories of how the process of self-mummification rose to popularity, where the living person would slowly poison themselves to make their body too toxic for even maggots to eat. Anyone who completed the ritual would be revered and worshipped, their body encased in gold. So then, how many more of these statues might be needing a little x-ray? Number 3. Vampire burials. Honestly, I just want this to be a cover for a metal album. When digging up a mass grave in Venice, of which there are probably thousands, one corpse stood out as slightly unusual to archaeologists. Buried with a massive chunk of stone in her mouth, the corpse was confirmed to have been buried around the time of the bubonic plague. Since handling corpses would have been extremely stupid at the time, scientists decided to run a little investigation into the matter. Their results concluded that whoever had buried the woman believed that she might have been a vampire, and placed the stone in her mouth to prevent her from snacking on plague victims. This is similar to the Polish vampire burials that were also recently uncovered, where a woman was buried with a modified sickle placed around her neck. That's so metal. Number 2. Persian chemical warfare. When 19 Roman soldiers stormed a Persian tunnel, what they were met with would change the world forever in about 2,000 years. A wall of smoke enveloped them, melting their lungs. Their bodies would be found years later, desperately clawing at their armor. What this is attributed to is an ancient chemical weapon constructed from sulfur and bitumen being thrown into a fire. The smoke was then directed up into the tunnels, where it would turn into acid once breathed in by anyone who contacted it. A starkly brutal weapon and a reminder of the horrors of war.
In our number 10 spot, we have Ulysses S. Grant. Apparently, Ulysses is known for being a bit of a badass in his time, but also, what you may not know is that he was actually a bit of a scaredy cat. How relatable. Same, Ulysses. Me too. But honestly, no wonder the government kept that a secret, because if the public knew that he dealt with being afraid of a lot of things, it wouldn't have reassured them that they had a strong, fearless leader running their country. Apparently he had so many fears, including not being able to look at a single drop of blood. I hope he never had to go to war. Poor guy. Honestly, I feel fate when I see blood too, so I feel very understood right now. In our number 9 spot, we have secret affairs. It is no secret that JFK had an affair with Marilyn Monroe and Bill Clinton allegedly had his affair, but honestly, let's not be so naive as to think that they are the only ones. Apparently, Lyndon Johnson was allegedly known to be quite the ladies' man within the Oval Office, and for decades there have been rumors of presidents that were also in the closet about their sexuality. But still, most of that is, hush hush, probably because of all the press and attention that would arise if such things were revealed, so makes sense. Also, the more people know about you personally, the more you become vulnerable to judgment and possible dislike, and so remaining somewhat of a mystery in order to control how the public sees you is definitely in every president's best interest. In our number 8 spot, we have President John Quincy Adams. Look, if the presidents become old and incapable of working, or if they turned out to be a little mentally unstable, you're probably not going to know about it. Why? Because in the government's eyes, the less you know, the better. The presidents are just one person, and they probably aren't the only ones that make the decisions, and so from the government's perspective, if you're able to be kept out of the loop, then that's just what they're going to do. Perhaps not right, but what can we do? Which is why it is not surprising to find out that President John Quincy Adams, the US's 6th president, had possibly gone a little crazy while he was in office. Apparently, he believed that the world was hollow and even helped fund a program that would help drill a hole into the ground to try to contact the mole people and begin trading negotiations. Even in the 1800s, this was known to be a hoax, so no wonder they covered this one up. In our number 7 spot, we have George Washington. As great as he was for the American people, apparently one thing that he kinda sucked at was war. Apparently he was not a good military commander, and when it came to strategy, he lost every major battle that he fought. Apparently once when he was supposed to capture a French fort, his men accidentally open-fired on a British unit. Oops. His poor commander skills would have probably hindered the public's perception on how he was an exceptional leader, so it was probably best that the public didn't know about this. It makes sense as to why the government protected this secret. He ended up being what some think to be one of the greatest presidents, so that was probably a good decision. In our number 6 spot, we have political clubs. Look, it's no secret that so many presidents and political figures have been tied to clubs and cults and groups, and they have been accused of some pretty unfathomable things. But does that mean every president and political figure is a part of them? Of course not. Regardless, there's no proof, and we can only speculate based on evidence we have, and the evidence is limited. There are pictures, though, of some of the past presidents being a part of specific clubs, such as President Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon on Robben Island, where there was believed to be a cult-like club on that island at the time. But who knows? That's kind of purely speculation. Regardless, we know that the government will continue to protect these specific clubs and their secrets, and nothing will change in that respect anytime soon. Coming up in our number 5 spot, we have President Roosevelt's secret. This one is purely speculation, but would be insane if it was proven to be true. The story of the attack on Pearl Harbor is known around the world because of how horrendous it was. We have all been told the story of the attack being completely unexpected and the country being blindsided. But there is some speculation as to whether that's the whole story or not. Word on the street is that allegedly President Roosevelt actually cut off trade to Japan, and people say that he allegedly told other countries to not trade with Japan, leaving Japan in a state of panic. The attack was supposedly a response to this decision, and therefore it wouldn't be entirely unexpected if it were proven to be true. Now, America was at war, and the Japanese were technically on the opponent's side, so that decision was probably an attempt to get Japan to change positions. But in any case, crazy stuff if it were true. In our number 4 spot, we have tea TV programs are. Allegedly, the initial reason why TV programs were created was with the purpose to be able to program the masses and control the narrative around the war and what was happening in the world. Experiments such as people being shown a train coming at them and the conclusion of their reaction to run away and think it to be real showed the power of imagery and how it can influence our emotions, how it can create real fear. The government knows this, and the government and presidents use this to their advantage, especially the presidents that have the media on their side. Ever wonder why everyone is super uneasy during election time and filled with fear and chaos, and then all of a sudden when the election is done, it all goes away? Make up whatever opinion you like on this, but it is fascinating to observe, and it is almost laughable that we went about calling TV shows TV programs for so long without even realizing what we were saying, but they knew. In our number 3 spot, we have Thomas Jefferson's stage fright. This isn't so much terrifying as it was seemingly terrifying for Jefferson to experience, but apparently Thomas Jefferson was actually allegedly a horrible public speaker and was terrified of it. People believe that perhaps he just had a stuttering problem, but apparently that is the reason as to why throughout his presidency he only gave 2 speeches in total. Lordy, that is quite a secret. I truly wonder how they kept that one a secret. Well, anyways, regardless, he was known for being brilliant and is known for making great improvements to the American society, but who knows? Maybe if that was common knowledge, the public may have been hard on him for it and he might not have done as good of a job. So maybe it's best that we didn't know. In our number 2 spot, we have restricted areas. Okay, this is another obvious one because obviously the governments of the countries of the world are protecting all of the restricted areas in their countries, including the secret presidential hideaways which we know exist. But in any case, there are restricted areas around the world such as secret bunkers for the presidents, but also a whole town called Mercury in Nevada, Area 51 in Nevada, North Base Secret Base in Canada, Menwith Hill Royal Air Force Station in the UK that's leased to the US. So many restricted areas around the world with secrets that I'm sure we can't even imagine. The potential things that lie within these secret places is hard to imagine. I bet you there is just so many things that would blow our minds, and I'm not just talking about secret presidential affairs that I'm sure happen. We're talking aliens, obviously. Coming up at our number 1 spot, we have the Presidential Book of Secrets. Allegedly, there is a book of secrets that has been passed down from US president to US president over the years, and it was revealed in the popular movie National Treasure, one of my personal favorites, not gonna lie. This is a book that is allegedly hidden in the library at the White House, and only the librarian knows of its location, in case, something happens to the president. President Obama hinted at this book being real on a talk show interview once. Some speculate that it was complete sarcasm, but on another occasion, he did say that Donald Trump would learn a series of deep secrets when he got into the office, so that's suspicious. Regardless, if it was real, he's not about to reveal that to us because it's a secret. Duh.
Number 10. He's a vampire. Alright. I'm taking this one a little bit far. According to some dubious genealogical lineage claims, Chucky here seems to claim that he's related to Vlad III, who is better known as Vlad the Impaler. Ruler of Wallachia, which would eventually become Transylvania, Vlad was known for his brutal means of execution, so brutal that his legend spawned up the idea of vampirism, with his character being used as the basis for the classic villain Dracula. Now, while the lineage claim appears to be somewhat legitimate, and Charles's great-grandma is Mary of Teck, who supposedly was descended from one of the Impaler's children, it would be good to note that basic genealogy means that I could also be related to Vlad the Impaler. Hell, apparently 0.5 of the world is related to Genghis Khan, and guess what? I suck at archery, and a horse nearly caved my skull in when I was 9, but hey, I could be his long-lost heir or whatever. 600 years of time really gives people a lot of opportunities to just spread those genes around. Chuck claimed that this was why he bought a house in Transylvania. I bet it's just why he's a prick. Number 9. The Black Spider Memos. These memos are a collection of letters written by pre-King Chuckles, and are generally controversial given the expectation of members of the monarchy to give off an appearance of political neutrality. Named after his distinctive handwriting, the Black Spider Memos are considered fairly harmless, though they do reveal a little bit of the post-Prince's thinking. He frequently references himself in these notes by the title of the Dissident, which I would consider fairly really high-minded for someone who is a member of royalty, but whatever. Honestly, the more interesting scuffle was centered around the actual challenge of just getting them published. That's a little bit more interesting. Even so, as it was a breach of confidentiality, it's going on the list. Number 8, his miserable childhood. You know, apparently growing up royal doesn't make you immune to classic childhood conflicts. While attending Cheam, he was reportedly bullied incessantly in ways that are frankly just messed up. Anyone who tried to befriend him was accused of sucking up until they abandoned him. And reportedly there were frequent borderline frat house style rituals that honestly just actually sounded like, you know, real torture. This was all also encouraged by the staff because, boys will be boys. A feature which is frequently observed in Chuckster are his massive ears, which earned him a bevy of ridicule. Thank goodness that great uncle Earl Mountbatten had a plan which would clearly fix this problem. He urged Charles's parents to surgically pin back his ears. What is actually wrong with you? No wonder he turned out like this. Number 7, the Latvia incident. So when Upchuck was visiting the Latvian capital of Riga in 2001, he received a fairly hilarious message of discontent from a protester. Alina Lebedevar, a 16-year-old, had been engaging in a protest against the war in Afghanistan around the time that the then prince had arrived. She then proceeded to slap him with a flower and state to nearby reporters that Britain is the enemy of the world before she was arrested. Now, what do you think happened to this young protester for her trouble? Well, she was faced with 15 years in prison for endangering the health and life of a foreign dignitary. But the sentence was, lessened because it was a flower. She would then be arrested a couple of years later for setting fire to a door at the Ministry of Education. I don't know, I think that's just cool. Don't do that, by the way. I can't encourage you to do that, so don't do that. Don't do that. Number 6, he was a great pilot. I think it's fairly safe to say that everyone involved in this incident was a mild evolutionary failure. In 1994, as a Queen's Flight aircraft was carrying Chuck-a-Buck to the runway, for some ungodly reason, the pilot just decided to give the control to Charles. This, of course, went great, and the plane careened off the end of the runway and ended up on the ground with severe damage overall. Fortunately, no one was hurt, the pilot took full responsibility, and Charles decided that he probably shouldn't try flying again. Now, in fairness, Charles was supposedly a decent flyer, and did possess a license and did get wings in 1970. However, he hadn't flown since then, so this still makes the pilot's decision brain-bendingly inane. This also happened at a very low point in Charles's social career, but we'll get to that later. Number 5, his treatment of Harry. Or, we'll get to it now. Yeah, this is an interesting one, because there's a bit of a timer on just about anything I say here. What I will say is that Charles has been stated as hoping for a girl, and there were a number of instances in Harry's life where Charles appeared to be completely absent from it. However, as of the time of this video's writing, Harry has announced that he will be writing a book titled Spare, which will detail his life in the royal family. The title is aggressive to say the least, and no doubt its contents will be unforgiving as hell. Just keep an eye on this one. I think we're gonna learn a little bit more about what happened here in the coming years. Number 4, racism. This point is just kinda gross, and also relates to Harry. While nowhere near as bad as Philip, who could get an entire video on just the racist things he said, it turns out that being rich, white, and British kinda just lets you say anything. As Meghan Markle is not, white, one morning during breakfast he is quoted as asking his wife, "I wonder what the children will look like," and then elaborates, "What do you suppose their children's complexion might be?" Of course, when this came to light, those quotes were immediately denied to have happened, and then eventually claimed to have been taken out of context. But it certainly coincides with Meghan's claims of how she was treated by the royal family. No wonder they got out of there, as a friend of mine put it, the drums were beating fairly loud that day. Number 3, the Paradise Papers. Released in 2017 by reporters Frederick Obermeyer and Bastian Obermeier, the Paradise Papers were a series of documents detailing investigations into the financial affairs and spending of numerous wealthy individuals and companies, one of which was then Prince Charlie. The documents revealed that while he's been outspoken for his vocal efforts to appear as a environmentally friendly prince, his wandering wallet has had apparently oppositional intentions. This conflict of interest has led many to question the sincerity of his claims when compared to his profits. Yet the documents do absolve him of responsibility, which only then just makes him blind and naive. Don't let anyone else touch your money. Seriously, that is real advice. Do not do that. Like, even if you trust them, don't. Number 2, King Tampon. You might think this is a low blow, but I want it to be clearly understood that I am the kind of person that thinks that abstract 3D models of spinning rats are the absolute height of comedy, so the depth of my bar is abyssal. Tampongate, as it is lovingly referred to, was a scandal that was an absolute gutbuster. I mean, I know that peeking into the romantic messages of people is invasive and gross and all that. I know that people will say anything in the throes of passion, and that it isn't our place to comment on it. But I also think that as long as King Tampon is the kind of person who has borderline present at his beck and call to clear away his desk and open doors, that he is clearly determined that there is a line drawn between us and him. So because of that, I do think that he ought to be exempt from the usual niceties. And so when he wishes to his then lover that he was her tampon, I think it's within our rights as the filthy peasants we are to look up at our reigning overlord and laugh ourselves silly. Number 1. His treatment of Diana. This isn't as easy to laugh about. It's a drastic shortening of events, but Charles and Diana weren't exactly the happiest couple. Sordid details aside, the fact of the matter is that he was just not interested in her and was a frequent adulterer. But due to royal precedent, he did not divorce her, nor she him. In a controversial interview with Martin Basher, she detailed extreme difficulties, citing a number of mental health issues and illnesses that she suffered. What happened from there was a fairly quick divorce, where Charles reportedly was adamant that she had to lose her title. There's so much more, but none of that really matters, as in 1997, while attempting to evade the paparazzi, Princess Diana died in a car accident. It needs to be understood that she was extremely popular, in particular for her work to increase the awareness of mental health, promoting the crazy idea that people with AIDS were in fact human, and supporting a landmine removal project which won a Nobel Prize. Personally, while it would be easy to label her experiences as a tragedy, and Charles's contribution to that was nothing short of disgusting, I believe that it is equally important to celebrate the fact that she is, by a long shot, the only member of the royal family to even attempt to use their position to create some good in the world.
Kicking off the list at number 10, nuclear secrets. Today's technology, it's getting faster, it's getting better, it's getting harder, it's getting stronger, right? All the good stuff. I'm learning more from Wordle than I did in high school, okay? But how secure are these study apps? That's the million-dollar question. A year ago, we quickly saw how a flashcard app could expose nuclear secrets. Yeah, this is a big one. Nuclear bases around Europe are housing US troops, and while they're there studying, they're using online flashcard apps to remember complex security codes. Makes a lot of sense. They would use common sites such as Quizlet, Cram, CheckPrep, etc. There's one set of 70 cards, again holding top secret information, titled Study, with an exclamation mark. Study! There we go. Each card contained information regarding live and non-live nuclear weapons. Guys like 6 times 6, 36, okay, 8 times 8, 64, and that's a nuclear warhead. Okay, I don't know what this flashcard is. That's a nuke. Number 9, Guantanamo files. Back in April 2011, a pretty heavy leak hit the web. And no, it wasn't Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man 3, it wasn't any of that. And no, it wasn't Avengers 1. WikiLeaks, who I covered in part 1 of the series, they also released the Guantanamo files, and they exposed the way prisoners were treated in Guantanamo Bay. In total, there were 779 documents that got released, and in said documents, it was discovered that innocent civilians, both from Pakistan and Afghanistan, were both being held there without any charges. It's brutal, there's some shady stuff going on. The age ranges as well for these prisoners go on from very young adults to an 89-year-old. So again, many of these prisoners are being held without any charges, and they're really young and really old, being treated like crap. This is a heavy leak, and in these documents we also see the way these prisoners are treated in detail. The way information was extracted from them was horrible. It was straight up torture. Number 8, off-road vehicles. Where we're going, we don't need roads. We're living in a pretty amazing time, I guess, when it comes to space exploration and travel and stuff. We recently sent off the James Webb Space Telescope to see even more of our universe. We're getting bigger and better. We're going deeper. 2020 was also the year where UFOs were just on the news. But what happens when these two worlds collide? Figuratively speaking, of course. Just over a year ago, an astrophysicist by the name of Eric Davis, he gave this classified briefing to the Defense Department mentioning these off-world vehicles. Secret off-world vehicles. What could he possibly mean by that? I mean the ISS, that is technically an off-world vehicle. Spaceships aren't new, you know what I mean? Well, he added the fact that these off-world vehicles were being made somewhere else as well. Not just, on Earth. Like some space BMW? I don't know. Former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is quoted in a Times article saying he believes that crashes of objects of unknown origin may have occurred, and that any recovered materials should be studied. Okay, more than fair. Eric Davis also once produced this report to try and convince the government to invest in time travel and use wormholes to achieve such a task. Yeah, this is the Christopher Nolan segment of the list. This guy knows some stuff, for sure. He actually said he studied these crashed materials, and his conclusion is that there's no way humans could have ever created it. Yeah, I don't know. Alien materials? What do you guys think? Are we hiding alien tech? I think so. Number 7. Weaponized lightning. This whole time I thought Thor worked for the Avengers. Apparently he's working for the CIA. How fun is that? Nice. Back in the late 60s, the scientist, who remains anonymous to this day, always a good sign, well, they figured out how to weaponize and bottle lightning. Can't imagine what Thor. They were determined to weaponize lightning to create Thor, I guess. That way there was little to no evidence left over after a planned attack. The idea, as crazy as it sounds, is pretty genius. Once it got online, people read it and they're like, oh, this is a good idea. It never made it to its final stages, thankfully, but when Forbes was allowed to release these declassified CIA files, we got a better idea of what was going on in the sky at the time. The plan was to drop these extremely thin metal wires from airplanes or rockets, whatever the case, something flying high in the sky. They would drop a metal fishing line through the clouds and then send many volts of electricity down to an enemy camp or whatever. That would for sure mess up their communications if it had worked. If, again, leaked ideas that never came to fruition. Number 6, spinning cube. Remember when UFO footage was being leaked in 2020? We had Senate hearings and we just didn't care. So many of these UFO documents ended up online from the 2020, alien leak, whatever that was. That was crazy. Some are too strange not to mention, evidently. Especially in a list of government secrets. So of course we're going to talk about some aliens. One of these leaked videos, I can't lie, there's some odd behavior going on here. In this video we see a spinning alien cube almost. Yeah, it was spotted over Missouri and then only a couple hours later it was seen again, but this time 700 miles away. So whatever it was, it's moving quite fast. 44-year-old Matthew Jandeka was minding his own business, hanging out on the porch, when this caught his attention. It was a sunny day and the light reflecting off the cube caught his eye. But a day earlier, another dude, 30-year-old Justin Johnson, saw the exact same thing. He saw it driving home. He saw the light and the reflections also caught his eye in the sky. At first he thought maybe it was a balloon, but the movements were too odd, Maybe it's another drone project. What do we think? Is there cube aliens now? Some geometric aliens coming down? Someone call Shia LaBeouf. We have more cubes. We have space cubes. Number 5. Always listening. I mentioned earlier in part 1 that summit where the United States originally wanted to call out China for cyber attacks, but instead Snowden ended up leaking a PowerPoint training slideshow, and now the tables were all of a sudden turned. Snowden ended up revealing himself as the spy kid on June 12th, and he said that he planned on remaining in Hong Kong until he was kicked out. But in his first press interview since coming out, he informed South China's Morning Post that the NSA was hacking Chinese and Hong Kong computers since way back in 2009. More specifically, Snowden said the NSA hacked the Chinese University of Hong Kong, aka the heart of all internet traffic in Hong Kong. That's pretty eye-opening. It's a lot of stuff. You're seeing a lot of secrets in there. But there's many who see this hack as a good thing, of course. Citizens want to know what their governments are up to. I personally would love to know if the NSA was rummaging through my chats, you know what I mean? So a poll was conducted on June 10th. Turns out 44% of Americans were on board with Snowden's outing, and 42% of Americans say that he's a bad boy. Yeah, 57% were not a fan of the NSA's actions, while 37% were on board. Number 4, friends without benefits. Even allies of the United States aren't safe here. Thanks Thanks to Snowden, at the end of October 2013, it was leaked that the states were spying on Germany, France, and Spain. Yeah, the NSA tapped into 35 phones, not just a couple of guys this time around. They were spying on 35 world leaders, one of which was German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who called out the NSA right after finding out and said that this act of snooping was just unacceptable between friends. Yeah, she said friends, that's crazy. It's like when you show your buddy a photo on your phone and then they start swiping. You're like, hi, what are you doing? Betrayal, what are you doing? Now, as you hear this, you're thinking, well, I'm not a world leader. I don't care. What's the big deal here? What can going through my phone really do? Well, it was also reported that they were monitoring phone calls in Spain for the average folk. Yeah, just listening in, seeing what your aunt's up to. They monitored around 60 million calls in 1 month. So yeah, world leader or not, I'd be a little concerned. They're listening to your secret recipes. I hope no one's listening to my phone calls. I mean, who makes phone calls anymore, you know? I see a phone call come in and I'm like, If it's important to leave a message, that's what I say. Even the NSA. Leave a message. Number 3, bird drones. Bird drones is not a new concept by any means, but it's fun. It's so fun. We gotta talk about it whenever we can. Back in the early 60s, the CIA had this secret program called Project Aquiline, where they used small drones with a low radar cross-section, a little camera almost, all that nice spy gadget stuff. They began working on this back in 1965, believe it or not, and the first prototype was a bit obvious. It was big. It weighed over 100 pounds. It was this massive eagle-looking camera, but the only way to catch it was to fly it into a net, which broke something almost every single test flight. So cut to 2022, yeah, there's probably a drone pigeon out there somewhere watching you. Olivia just did a couple lists on hidden cameras, so birds, drones, I mean probably. Some people think pigeons aren't even real. Some people think pigeons are drones sent by the government to watch us. I don't know. I think pigeons are pigeons. They look like pigeons. They found a hidden camera in a cactus, so sleep in fear, people. Number 2, backup files. When Glenn Greenwald kicked off this whole thing in 2013 with Snowden, it was this massive security breach, of course. Snowden was, of course, in immensely hot water, but he was also ahead of the game right from the start, before even getting caught, before even coming out. Snowden had told Greenwald that if anything crazy were to happen to him in the future, well, he'll just leak even more information. Nice, we love backup files. You got dirt? Well, I got more dirt. Everyone's dirty. If Snowden was unable to access these encrypted documents on one of his 4 laptops, then it was set up to automatically send said private documents to higher ups and keep it going, aka the people directly involved would still stay out of the picture. On top of that, Snowden reminded The Guardian that he has many more secrets to spill, specifically the NSA's surveillance systems. Yeah, this is why you make backups, people. Duly noted, Snowden. I put this backup script in another Google Doc, just in case the NSA comes around. And finally, number 1, Pine Gap. Going to the land down under for this one. Sorry, I said under. Should have said under, but I like it. Australia's fun. Pine Gap is a secret military compound built around the Cold War. It's been described as Australia's Area 51. Australia's Area 51? Area 51? I don't know. I love Australian accents, but I can't do them. I can't do it. I don't like spiders either. All we know, the secret base, this mysterious island, was revealed back in 2013 thanks to, you guessed it, Edward Snowden. This guy releases everything. We need another Snowden to come around. This guy's the OG. Turns out this island is not a resort. In fact, it's actually a satellite surveillance base that runs espionage operations. The NSA uses this facility for global interception, and they also collect internet and telephone communication records. Again, all those secret recipes that you're telling to your aunt, they're listening, they're taking it. They're like, oh, extra garlic, you bet. That makes sense. Back in the 70s, around 400 American families just happened to move to the nearby Alice Springs. Yeah, not a coincidence at all. Just that many families rolling in. Yeah, no government operations. Just, people just decided to move here. What does your husband do? Oh, he surfs the web waves. He surfs the waves. Just the waves. Just that's it. Nothing to do with the web or online. Pine Gap, bring your kids and bathing suit. Have fun.
Moving on at number 9, we have Nixon's health. Now, this isn't really classified information, but I thought it was quite interesting, and it was brought to my attention by Kelly, Roy on Reddit. So, the files of Richard Nixon's longtime physician, Dr. Walter Tkach, probably said that last name wrong, are on lockdown. The doctor's son has the files and is planning to eventually release them to the Nixon library, but when he does, they will not be open for 75 years. Not only that, but taped conversations between Nixon and his doctor are also on lockdown, and they will not be released. Now, why is this significant? Well, some people believe that Nixon was incapacitated towards the end of his presidency. If so, then under the 25th Amendment, he should have had his authority suspended. So there's a reason why the government has been keeping these files classified. It's going to apparently expose a lot. In our 8th spot, we have the trade documents. Back Back in 2019, the Reddit account OsterMaxNN leaked a bunch of UK government trade documents. The documents discussed future trade deals between the US and the UK. They also revealed plans by the Conservative Party to privatize National Health Service. After investigation, it turns out that the Reddit user that leaked the documents was part of a larger coordinated effort from Russia. Reddit said, and I quote, "We investigated this account and the accounts connected to it. And today we believe this was part of a campaign that has been reported as originating from Russia." In our 7th spot, we have Area 51. Everyone wants to know what really goes on in Area 51. Is it really where they're keeping aliens? I need to know. But sadly, we don't truly know. But we do have some insider information on what it's like in Area 51. Yeah, you heard me. 8 years ago, a Reddit user by the name of Kiver16 revealed that his mother's boyfriend is Stephen Gorvan, aka one of the people who was at Area 51 testing the Mars rover. He uploaded a picture of Stephen holding a sign saying, "Hi Reddit, ask me anything," as proof that it actually was him and he wasn't just gonna make it up. So people quickly jumped to it, asking him tons of questions on the mysterious base. During one part of the Q&A, Stephen revealed that when he first arrived at the base, he saw a strange aircraft flying low across the desert floor. He believed that it was a test flight for a secret aircraft. He said it moved at subsonic speed and didn't make a lot of noise. He also revealed that Area 51 is much bigger than it looks, with tons of different sectors and buildings. Now sadly, he didn't see any aliens. But he did reveal that it seemed like we are close to hoverboard technology, like the ones you see in Back to the Future. So that's pretty cool. Moving on to number 6, we have D.B. Cooper. One of the most famous and mysterious cases of all times. And I might have found out what happened to him. But first, let me give a rundown on this dude for the people who have no clue what I'm talking about. Dan Cooper, or D.B. Cooper, is a man who was responsible for a plane hijacking in 1971. No one knows who he is or where he is now. So in 1971, Cooper boarded the plane, and once in the air, he handed the flight attendant a note saying that he had a bomb in his suitcase. He demanded $200,000 and a parachute, but he didn't want any hostages. So they landed in Seattle, he got his request, and then he told the pilot to fly to Mexico City. However, along the way, he took the money and his parachute and jumped out of the plane. The police looked for Cooper until 2016, and this case is known as one of the longest active searches in history. Now, 2 years ago, a former FBI special agent joined Reddit and did a AMA, Ask Me Anything. To prove it was really him, he held a piece of paper like the other dude, saying his name and his Reddit, blah blah blah. The man is Mark Ruskin, who worked 20 years in undercover operations. One of the questions that someone asked him was about D.B. Cooper, and what the FBI thought happened to him and what he thought happened to him. Ready for this? Both the FBI and Mark believe that D.B. Cooper did not survive the parachute down. I know, so anticlimactic, but apparently they have evidence to suggest he didn't make it. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the cat bomb. So this secret isn't really a secret anymore. I guess most of these aren't secrets anymore, but I didn't know this was a thing until I read about it on Reddit, meaning that I bet some of you haven't heard about it either. So during World War II, the government thought it would be a good idea to strap a cat to a bomb. They thought that by doing so, it would assure the bombs would reach their target. Cats hate water, so they thought if you drop a cat strapped to a bomb over water, the cat would avoid the water and then would just land on the battleship's deck. But obviously, for many reasons, that did not work out. Cats would end up passing out midair before sinking without a trace. They also tried something similar with bats, which again, didn't really work. Moving on to number 4, we have the bomb shelter. This is going to come to a shock to anyone who lives outside of the US. Posted on Reddit by the user Deadpool8988, they said that at one point, the US government was telling people to build a bomb shelter in their backyards. They instructed people to dig a big enough hole in their backyard and then cover it with a door. They were told to hide out there in case of a nuclear attack. But turns out, that the real reason why they were telling families to do this was so that if there was a nuclear attack, the government wouldn't have to bury as many bodies. So families were literally digging their own graves. That is extremely disturbing. In our third spot, we have the blood supply. Okay, this one is going to be pretty crazy. So back in 1984, the Red Cross Society in Canada was importing blood products from the US. This was at the time of the AIDS crisis, and America was hit much harder with it. There was fear that the disease was going to be transmitted through this blood. But the Red Cross ignored it, and according to this Reddit user who was a lab worker for the American Red Cross, apparently they were aware of this and so was the US government. But they didn't warn Canadians. Instead, they told them they had nothing to worry about and that they tested the blood before sending it. The guy was forced to keep his mouth shut and lie. As a result, tons of hemophiliacs who had blood transfusions later died of AIDS. What's freaky is that the Reddit user that shared this information later deleted his account. I just hope that he's safe and that the government didn't come for him for exposing them. In our second spot, we have the leaked emails. In March 2016, the personal Gmail account of John Podesta, a former White House Chief of Staff and chair of Hillary Clinton's 2016 US presidential campaign, was hacked, and his emails revealed some very disturbing things. So the emails were posted to Reddit along with other websites, and then users started to decipher them. They believe that Hillary and other people of power are part of a human and a sex ring. In the emails, they use code words like pizza, cheese pizza, and hot dogs. Kinda weird. And it would say things like, and I quote, "I'm dreaming about your hot dog stand in Hawaii." Clearly, there's a hidden message to that. I can't dive into too much detail about it for obvious reasons, but you should do some research of your own. It's crazy. What makes this more suspicious is that the government removed all posts about this from Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites. Any posts about the emails and the theories will be removed. And in our number one spot, we have the blue van. Okay, this one thoroughly creeps me out. Like, it just proves that the government is up to no good. So this story was posted on Reddit by a former homicide detective. One time he was called to a scene where the victim had called 911 saying that someone was trying to kill him. He told police that he was hiding in his panic room. When they arrived at his house, there were no signs of forced entry, and all the doors remained locked from the inside. Inside the house, there was no damage, it was just super clean, no signs of violence or anything. Due to this, the detective believed that the attacker was someone that the man knew and invited inside. When they eventually got to the panic room, they found the man sitting on the floor. His face had a terrified expression plastered on it. Both of his arms were missing, not cut off. They looked as if they had been ripped off. His missing limbs were never found. Now, here's where it gets spooky. As soon as they reported their findings, the police captain told the team to give all of the evidence, along with the victim's body, to the individuals in a blue van that had arrived on the scene. The blue van belonged to the government. After they did this, the case was buried. They never heard any more information on it. Like, what? Seems like some government creature got released and killed this guy or something like that, and then they're trying to cover it up.